The town of Dunker, high on the Tibetan Plateau in China. Project Dunker, as it's become known, is quite a story. It brings together a Christian engineer, a second-hand hovercraft at Leon Solent, and a rock concert in Portsmouth. A fundraising concert organised by students at Portsmouth University. The money is to help finance the next chapter in the Project Dunker adventure. In a few months, an expedition will set off to bring practical help to one of the most isolated spots on the planet. The town of Dunker nestles beside the Himalayas of Tibet on the banks of the river Yangtze. 13 years ago, an intrepid group of British adventurers took a bizarre cargo through the mountains to Dunker. When they unpacked it, the town could scarcely believe its eyes. The idea was to see if hovercraft could provide an ambulance service in a region where travelling even short distances can take days. But it was also to put the hovercraft to an extreme test, to take it to the very source of the Yangtze. One of the leaders on the trip is now a professor at Portsmouth University, Mel Richardson.
Well, the Yangtze, if you like, for a hovercraft is the ultimate challenge, because the American rafters, who rafted all over the world, Ken Warren and people like that, they call the Yangtze the most difficult and dangerous river in the world. So the challenge to put a hovercraft, make it work on the most difficult river in the world, was going to be something special.
Soon after the hovercraft launched, it ran into trouble. A seemingly innocent stretch of the river suddenly turned nasty, and the craft hit a rock.
I think everybody was sort of scared out of their wits, to be honest. But there's a sort of sense of self-survival and feeling, well, look, we must get a grip on this and get ourselves out of it.
It took a great deal of ingenuity to beach the hovercraft, patch up the skirt, and continue. Today, by a twist of fate, the hovercraft is being stored at the Hovercraft Museum at Leon Solent, and Mel vividly remembers taking the crippled craft on the last leg of the journey.
And then the piece of the resistance was, when you're in a snowstorm, when it's really, really blowing, what do you do if you haven't got the windscreen wipers working? Well, we took it in turns to lie out in a blizzard with a big glove, going like that, basically. Also, of course, you've got ice flow, so you've got, if you actually got out of control, you'd be hitting jagged bits of ice, so it gets a little bit dodgy. But,
so when you actually reached the source, that must have felt a huge relief, a huge
sense of pride. Well, it's a huge relief, but we could see that there was, there was snow and storms coming in. It was really getting dark. The weather to begin with was a bit like today here, but we could see in the distance these big snowstorms were coming. We knew how violent they could be. So we waved a few flags, took a few pictures, and it was a question of getting out fast before any more troubles came.
The trip set the world hovercraft altitude record of 16,000 feet, which still stands today. But the true legacy of the journey is in Dunker itself. The goodwill created by the expedition has led to several follow-up visits, with each group bringing a variety of skilled volunteers: doctors, dentists, teachers and engineers.
I mean, one of the most successful projects, we dug a trench a mile long from the top of a mountain down to the bottom to the village to run a pipe, a simple pipe system, dug it in to make sure he didn't get affected by permafrost, running water into the centre of the village, clean running water from up in the mountains.
The hovercraft still works, and though it won't be going back to Dunker, the next expedition is taking something else on the cutting edge of technology. Much more tomorrow, but that's all from the team. So, a professor of engineering at the University of Portsmouth has a unique relationship with the town. It began, as you may remember from yesterday's programme, when he took a hovercraft to Dunker 13 years ago to travel up to the source of the Yangtze. He's been back several times since, and now he's getting ready to go again. It's a long way to Dunker, but this is a journey that Professor Mel Richardson and his Care and Share Foundation have now made many times, bringing practical help to one of the most isolated spots on Earth. Help that begins a world away in an engineering laboratory at the University of Portsmouth. Here, researchers are working at the cutting edge of technology, designing and testing new materials. The lab has attracted the attention of engineers from around the world. But the project closest to Professor Richardson's heart is in Dunker.
Well, the new project is perhaps the most ambitious thing we've ever done yet, and that is we've been offered land to build an orphanage and friendship centre. But that in itself poses huge problems of paperwork and bureaucracy and being a foreigner, you know, in a strange land, and it's very complicated, but it's a very good project and something which we're very much looking forward to.
The orphanage in Dunker will be modelled on this one in another part of China several hundred miles away. The Dunker building would also house a friendship centre where visiting Western doctors, teachers and volunteers could stay. But there is a problem with building anything in this part of China. The traditional building material is wood from local forests. But felling trees alongside the Yangtze leaves bare, sandy banks that silt up the river, and that has caused terrible floods in recent years. So the Chinese authorities have banned the chopping down of trees in this part of the country. Mel thinks he has found an alternative.
When you take a pod, okay, inside, you take the peas out, peas come out. What you do with this? What I'm doing here is I'm going around collecting fibrous material from around the Denka village. The reason I'm doing that is to see whether in fact we can use their natural materials, dry them out and make them, or help the Tibetans make building materials out of it, which could be very...
The technique could use almost any kind of natural fibre, and there are many sources of it around Dunker. The fibres are put into a mould and then a resin is forced in. The result is a hard, firm material suitable for building. Back in Portsmouth, the idea has been given a twist that uses the very latest advances in nanotechnology. By adding specially treated nano clay, the final material is made very much stronger, and it could be ideal for Dunker, as Dr. Zhang Zongyi explained to me.
What we are going to put into the material, just a tiny bit, never more than 5% of the nano. Looks like you just put some paper on your food, which gives you a very strong flavor. And it's very easy to acquire in China and not very difficult to transport the stuff from somewhere, you know, anywhere to a remote village, you know, like Dunker.
A derelict cinema in Dunker has been given to the team as a site for the orphanage. The new nano material will feature strongly in the rebuilding. For Mel Richardson, it's a task that brings together many of his passions.
I want to care and share for people. I'm a Christian by belief, and I believe I want to care and show my care in a practical way. Rolling our sleeves up, taking people in, enduring all the problems of bureaucracy or whatever to get there, and to do a job, you know, and to show our credentials that way.
Mel Richardson.